As athletes, wouldn't we all like to be immune to the effects of time? Well, today's featured performer, 12 times Ironman New Zealand champion, 47-year-old professional long course distance triathlete Cam Brown, I believe, has cracked the code.
Hi, I'm Cameron Brown, 12 times the New Zealand Ironman champion. You can listen to me on the Physical Performance Show.
Failure is not an option.
I've had my ups and my downs.
Phelps with 10 meters left. 3 minutes too good. The crowd roaring. Freeman gets down.
I think it's an absolutely breakthrough experience.
Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, the show designed to inspire the pursuit of your physical best performance. I'm your host, Brad Beer. Listen in as we delve into how the world's top physical performers achieve their success, as well as the highs, the lows, and the journey of getting there. Let's get ready, set, let's go. Welcome to the Physical Performance Show, brought to you by Kinesis Sunscreen and Pogo Physio's online consultations. I'm Brad Beer, sports physiotherapist and exercise scientist by trade and training, and founder of Pogo Physio. Each week, we'll bring you the latest and greatest information and inspiration designed to help you perform at your physical best. Of course, we do this across a range of different episodes, expert editions, featured performers, coaches' corners, and interest editions. And as noted at the top of the show, this is a featured performer episode. And we keep the New Zealand athletic talent theme going, running over from last week's expert edition featuring fellow long course distance triathlete Dr. Dan Plews. And this week it is Cameron Brown, Cam Brown, or Chucky as he's affectionately known, in the hot seat. And we'll explore Cam's highs, lows, and learnings. By way of bio, Cam Brown is unlike any professional triathlete that I've heard of, or in fact I've ever witnessed race in. Cam's bio is nothing short of spectacular. You see, Cam started in the sport of triathlon in 1987. And in 2020, as we record this episode, Cam continues to race professionally at the top end of elite long course distance triathlon. Cam competed in his first Ironman Distance Triathlon in 1997, and at the time of recording, Cam has completed circa 70 Ironman Distance Triathlons. By way of bio, Cam has won the New Zealand Ironman Triathlon Championships 12 times. That's right, 12 times. Has been crowned the European Ironman champion in Frankfurt. Has 2 second-place finishes at the Hawaii Ironman World Championships, 2 third-place finishes at the Hawaii Ironman World Championships, has won the Cannes Ironman title, Metaman Ironman Distance Champion, and the list goes on and on. It truly is a spectacular display of athleticism. Cam's last New Zealand Ironman title, in fact, came at the age of 43 in 2016. And on today's episode, Cam shares around some key concepts that have kept him so well in the game. These include attitude to training, being consistent, listening to one's body, the importance of developing good running technique and how that impacts on running efficiency, strength and conditioning, structuring training programs, and of course we reflect on some of the early days in the world of triathlon. There's a whole lot of fun in this and a whole lot of learnings as well. Here is Cam Brown, 12 times New Zealand Ironman champion, sharing on his career highs, lows, and learnings. Cam Brown, this is a real treat. Your career is one that, as a lover of the sport of triathlon, I have admired for many years. And I know you're shy of the word legend, but I think it's a title that fits what you've been able to achieve in the sport so far, and it's not over yet. So welcome to the Physical Performance Show.
Yeah, thanks very much for having us, Brad.
Cam, we break this show into highs, lows, and learnings, but it would not do your story, success, or contribution to endurance sports justice to throw straight into those without bringing your career into some context. So, Cam, I know you've spoken about this many times, but for the uninitiated, can you take us back to when you first fell in love with the sport of triathlon, and then we'll do the journey from there.
Yeah, so I started when back in 1987, and went to a new school, Packer College, and they were just really getting involved in the sport. And they had a teacher there, Patsy Lambert, who was just an English teacher, so she was just new to it as well. And yeah, we just started from there. And at secondary school level, the sport was thriving, and of course it was thriving domestically as well, because we had Rick Wells and Aaron Baker winning the World Championships in Perth in 1987 as well. So the sport was on a high, and I think I fell in love with it as soon as I did my first race, and that was I think probably March in 1987. So a long time ago, but it's amazing I still have a passion for it and still love it so much.
And I mean, here we are recording 33 years later, and as you say, you've still got a love for it and a passion for it. What did you fall in love with as a teenager doing that first race in 87?
Oh, I think just, I tried rugby, I tried tennis, soccer, badminton, you name it. I tried every sort of sport out there, and then I think I just kept getting bored of the same repetitive sort of stuff, and just single sports. And as soon as triathlon was just beginning then, and swim, bike, running, every day you could do something different and enjoy it. And it was it was just, I just never got tired of it, and I still don't. If I don't feel like going for a run, I'll go for a swim or a bike, or if you're injured, you can still go and do different stuff. So it was just I don't know, it was different, and you were outdoors all the time, and just enjoying, keeping fit and keeping active.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so simple, doesn't it? I had to smile though there, Cam. You said you were bored with the same repetitive stuff, yet here you are 33 years into a professional Ironman career, and some would say that's quite repetitive.
I know, yeah, a little bit crazy. I think we all are that do this sport, but I think that's the main thing, that the driving force behind me is just the passion for it. And I still I've just started running again in the last 2 days. I had a little calf injury for 2 weeks, and I just miss it. I love to run, and once I can't run, I've been swimming and biking, and not swimming at the moment, but just biking. And man, I love my running and love my trail running. So I'm glad to be back running again and building that up again.
And we definitely want to touch on a bit of a stock take of some injuries over the years. But Cam, I'm fascinated on the psychology. I often joke that if you want to find the type A personalities in society, go and look at a triathlon transition area, and you'll find them all captured there, or a large percentage of them. What do you think are other psychological attributes that are required or attract people to endurance rigours or sports such as Ironman triathlon? Yeah,
I think it is definitely that A type, but I think you certainly have a broad spectrum of different athletes that come up to Ironman and try it. You have athletes that do one Ironman and that's it, or a couple of seasons and then they've had enough, and then you have your athletes like myself that after 33 years I'm still doing the same thing and still loving it. And then you have your people. I've known so many athletes that I've trained with over the years that so many talented athletes, but I think if you're a hard working a workhorse out there, then you'll go a long way. It's those guys that just sit there and continue to be repetitive and just bang out those mileage day after day. Then those are the ones that sometimes come through in the end. You don't have to be the most talented athlete to start with. Sometimes talent has different paths, and it's not just about swim, biking, running. It's the discipline of nutrition, the discipline of getting to the pool on time, getting in first in, last out, and all those little other things that make up the sport of being a triathlete.
Is that first in, last out of the pool, is that something that you've held yourself to account on over these 33 years?
Yeah, definitely. It's always sort of been my philosophy of when you turn up to a swim squad, you're on time, you're ready to go at 6 a.m. when the clock starts, and I've seen a lot of athletes over the years that would be 10-15 minutes late, and then they'd be getting out early as well. So, and those are the guys that I've seen that have never continued on in the sport because I think they didn't have that be disciplined, and that's the driving force. If you're not disciplined to get out there and be on time, and then it shows in your training and your racing.
I remember hearing, Cam, a little adage, and I think I've never forgotten it: a shortcut will only cut you short.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And triathlons, there's a lot of different things that make up the sum of its parts. That's for sure. It's just, as I said, it's just not swim, biking, running. It's so many different elements that you have to do to be a great athlete.
Where do you reckon your level of discipline came from, Cam? Was it, is it genetic? Did you grow up in an environment where discipline was valued, or is that just who you are at your DNA level?
Yeah, I think my parents, my dad, he was a builder, and I probably saw it in him. He was up early every morning and at to work, and he wouldn't get home till 5:30 every day, and it was he was gone at probably 6:30 in the morning. And I think you follow what your parents do in their discipline, and if I think you see it in kids if they follow what their parents can do and see that discipline that they can put in, and it definitely helps. It definitely makes you see if you work hard, then you get the results and the rewards come.
Yeah, wow. And Cam, you went on from that first triathlon, that first race in 87, to take out a national junior title, schoolboys title in 1988, so 1 year later. And then you turned pro just 2 years after that. And that was 1990. And it was really the early burgeoning days of triathlon. I fell in love with it in 1991 in Australia, watching the domestic then Tui's Blue Triathlon series with some of your contemporaries, Brad Bevan, Greg Welsh, Miles Stewart and the like. And that was me, hook, line and sinker. I was hooked. So what are your recollections from those early 90s through to the sort of mid-90s, those years? It must have been quite something to be part of.
Yeah, it was a great time of the sport, and I think when I look back now, I don't know how we actually did it, because there was no internet. There was you used to fax race directors to enter and or ring them up, and my times in Japan, I'd have $100 phone bills when I'd return, because you'd be talking to my wife back then, so you'd have massive telephone bills, and just the logistics of getting around the world without the technology that we have now was quite amazing, and how we did it, but we did it, and it was. I've just been over this lockdown period, I've been reminiscing and got out the VHS cassettes and playing back the old footage of some of the Grand Prix in Australia, and I did a few of those over the years, and I think that's why there was such a force in Australia triathlon, because of that series. They were the Aussies back in the 90s were just world class, and I think now we see it coming out of France and Germany with them, because their domestic season is so strong. The Grand Prix in France are probably, some of them are better than the World Cups that you'll see. There's that much depth. So, the sport back then was just beginning. It was thriving, and I went through the history of starting on a steel bike, then into aluminium and Klein bikes, and then into 26-inch wheels, and then into carbon. And you look back now, what we used to ride, the positions and the food we ate, the nutrition was pretty poor, and what it is nowadays with all the different sort of gels and proteins and that we can lay our hands on. So it was still, I think, I very, very fond memories of that time back in the 90s, because it was we didn't know a lot about the sport, and we continue to. I think you grew every year and year. I used to do double seasons, Northern Hemisphere and our winter, and then our Southern Hemisphere. And every time you did that, you got a little bit better, you got a little bit faster and a little bit wiser, and tried to learn from the best that were in New Zealand, and there was in Australia, because there was so much talent back down here. So when you had Rick Wells on the line, the world champion, then it was fantastic as a junior to see him and race him and get better.
And did Rick Wells, former world champion, ever share any encouraging words to you as an up and coming junior that you can recall?
Yeah, he was fantastic. He actually came to our school in, I think, 1998. Our teacher, I think, demanded that he came. He won the World Championships, and then I think a few months later, he was. I just took a photo of the picture that I've still got from our 1989 yearbook or something, or 88 yearbook, that he came with another great triathlete, Brett Marshall. So, I speak to message Wellesley daily.
Wow.
So he was absolutely incredible for our sport, and he was a household name back then, and still one of my heroes. I take my hat off to him, because it's great to have guys like him in your sport when you're a junior. And I think we've sort of lost that in some ways with the separation of elites and age groupers racing together. There's not many races where that happens. And back then, every time you're on the start line, you got to race. Your Rick Wells, your Erin Bakers, your Greg Welsh's, and Brad Evans. They were next year, so it was a fantastic time of the sport.
As in, you got to toe the line with them, and it sounds like Rick Wells has been a massive influence on you both as a developing athlete, and also currently, Cam. And I must direct people to jump over and check out some of the great footage and the awesome photos you're posting over on Instagram. Cam Brown 72 over on Instagram, and that 72 isn't the number of New Zealand Ironman titles. That is, of course, your I believe your date of birth, but you're not far off 72 in terms of your Ironman New Zealand titles, Cam. I think 12. Is that correct?
Yeah, 12. Yeah, so I think I'm getting up to nearly 70 Ironman, so it's getting close to that.
That 72.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't that be
there
something?
might be only one Ironman happening this year. Normally it's 3 a year, but this year could be just the one.
Well, let's see. I mean, you've had 23 starts at Ironman New Zealand over the years, and most recently, I really respected this post. You posted on the 7th of March, and you said, pretty happy with today's race. Solid swim and bike. Left me 12 minutes down at the start of the run. Managed to run up into 6th place at the finish line, which I was pretty happy about, especially after your calf injury and 7 weeks off that you had before the race. Not bad, going 8:14, just 3 months shy of being 48 years. And then you go on to write, your long-term goal is to race at Ironman New Zealand as a pro until you're 50 years of age. See you next year. So what's the significance, other than the fact that you've won the event 12 times, of Ironman New Zealand to you, Cam?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's crazy that I'm still competing as a 47-year-old, nearly 48-year-old at this stage. And as I said, I can't see myself really, slowing down too much in the next couple of years. It's I went 8:14 this year off a very, very poor running. Only had 5 weeks really of running, and that showed during the race. I just fell apart totally, and just didn't have the run form in the legs. So I know I could have gone a lot quicker and have been a lot more competitive out there. But that was the case. It was you get injured as you get older, but taking care of yourself is now the hardest thing to do. And as we get older, things shorten up, things tighten up. So it's and pretty much that's my philosophy on things now. I cannot stop. If I stop, I just seize up. And throughout my career, 20s, 30s, never got injured. And then probably, my mid-30s, I started to get little injuries coming in, plantar fascia, calves, mostly soleus, and just little niggles in the lower extremities of my body. And, it's one thing that I could probably have 2 weeks off and be safe, but anything longer than that now, it's, keeping the body moving, keeping it at a fitness level that I can easily come back to. So that's one thing I strongly recommend athletes do when they age is keeping the body moving, even if it's not swim, bike, and running. It's some other discipline. You've got to keep it there and keep it an active recovery. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, as a sports physio, I certainly, I'm always conscious of the masters athlete, which is by definition 35 years plus. Any time off, particularly running, there's that deconditioning element to the muscles, the tendons, and then there's that potentially relative overload once you do push play again. Just curious, what sort of mileage, I know mileage isn't everything, we're not talking about intensity, but just on the volume, those 5 weeks of running that you did get done, what were you able to get done ahead of the most recent 2020 Ironman New Zealand?
I think I probably scraped up to about 95 Ks, which, that was normally I would be doing 5-6 weeks of 100, 110, 120 Ks in a build-up. So I probably got 1 week of that in. So, and so I was just absolutely cooked. Probably for me, a 251 this year.
Yep.
Marathon was a pretty poor performance. Normally 241, 242 is sort of where I am, on the day. And that showed it. 30 Ks, I just completely fell apart, and it was not a nice last sort of 4 or 5K. It was a real struggle, but I mean, it's incredible when I look back and think, and doing an 8:14 at 47 years of age, an 8:14 would have won probably nearly every one of those Ironmans back in my day. So it's the sport has just continued to get faster and faster, and and again, I think because I've stayed in the sport, I've been able to keep pushing, keep developing, and continue to try and develop as an athlete as well. And that's what I think you always have to do.
And I'm looking at the Ironman New Zealand results, and over the years that you didn't take out the event, where you did podium, on the bulk of those, if you did go on 8:14, you would have taken the victory. So, it's quite something. I'm fascinated by masters athletes that endure, and we've had the real privilege of hosting some great masters athletes as featured performers in the past. Meb Klevetsky, Bernard Lagat, some really great masters athletes. What do you think, Cam, are, if we play a game of top threes, what are the top three, requirements for a masters athlete?
I think, definitely. Well, I couldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it and didn't have that passion for the sport. That's number one, I think, because I just wouldn't get out of bed otherwise in the morning. And it is extremely hard what we do. So if you don't have a love for it, then, you'd quickly roll over and push the snooze button on your alarm clock if you didn't. I think that's number one. Two would be just continuing to push the boundaries, and what works, but you have to evolve, and we've seen that in the sport. The sport continues to get faster and faster. And three, I think, is just my biggest asset is just, I think, consistency, and that plays a massive part in what I've ever done. I think if you hit the red line too much, all the time, then your body just breaks down, gets sick, gets injuries. So it's knowing how hard you can push that body, and if as you get older, we can push the throttle, up to 8,000-9,000 revs when we're young, but as we age as an older athlete, then it gets pretty hard you can't push that throttle down as much, and you've got to take the foot off the throttle, that's for sure. And it's more about, so a lot of my training now is, it is endurance, but it's those hard sessions are few and far between. They're more like 2 runs a week that are a tempo or threshold workouts where back in the day in my 20s and 30s you'd recover within 24 hours and it wouldn't be a problem. But it's more like 48 to 72 hours now between those real hard sessions.
And do you that's something you've picked up over the years, and it makes me think of something that Meb Klevetsky did mention. He said as a Masters runner, he always made a conscious decision to leave a little bit in the tank after each session, whether it was a long run or an effort. He wouldn't empty it. So it sort of really resonates with that. But,
absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. If you can, say if you're doing a track session and if you can finish that track session knowing, hey, I could have done, another 1 or 2 reps and, finished, like that, then it's been a good set. If you come off that track as an older athlete just absolutely smashed, well, it's probably going to take you 3, 4, 5 days to recover from it. So again, that's a perfect philosophy on training as an older athlete. You've got to come off and think, could have gone a little bit harder, or could have done a few more, but it's just about consistency and leaving something in the tank for tomorrow and the next day.
Brilliant. So Cam Brown's top 3 Masters athlete tips: 1, enjoy it, continue pushing the boundaries; 3, be consistent. Cam, that breakdown of your intensity distribution through your training week, is that something that you've just arrived at, obviously, like you shared, but do you sort of subscribe to any coaching or, training philosophies specifically, like, the polarized method, for example, or are you just more on feel? Like, how do you determine the intensity of your sessions?
Definitely, as I've aged, it's more on feel now. Okay. There's so many times where I'll go out and I just don't know if I've recovered from the day before. So, I'll start the session if, I've worked out with my coach what we're doing, but if the engine's not burning brightly and you're going to risk injury or just not being able to do it to your potential, then I'll just back it off. So it is, a lot of it is on feel now, whereas in my 20s you knew you would recover, you knew you'd be able to do the session pretty much every day. So again, a lot of those sessions are on feel, and I think a lot of athletes don't do that enough now. They or they'll wake up, I feel a little bit tired, but sometimes, it might take you, 15, 20 minutes to warm up and get into it, and then a lot of times, you actually come right. But I always, I won't, there's not many times where I'll roll over and push the snooze button. I'll get up, get out there and see how I feel, and if it doesn't happen, it just ends up being just a normal endurance session where, but if I do feel good, then I can do the session, and I'll try and do it to my best.
How over the years, you started in the 80s, I started in the 90s, and I often joke that, and laugh, I should say, on reflection, I didn't get a GPS watch until about 6 months prior to the 2012 World Triathlon Champs there in your home country of Auckland, Olympic distance, and it was always running by feel. How have you adapted, evolved, or adjusted to the data overload that's at every athlete, particularly endurance athletes' fingertips these days? Do you just cherry pick what matters, what doesn't, or are you quite data driven?
No, not at all. Yeah, I look at a few things, and I think there's just too much overload sometimes. You have athletes come to me, and I coach a few athletes nowadays, and they'll say, what should my my FTP be at sort of 70% and 80%, and it's just back in the day, I think half the guys back then would still would be better than the people nowadays racing, because it's just people just too much overload, too much looking at that emphasis on data. Sometimes it's just about knowing. If you Garmin or GPS watch stuffs up, or your power meter doesn't go on the day, half the people wouldn't know how to push themselves. So sometimes you've got to go out and go by feel. And some of my best sessions are they're on feel, and more and more athletes need to do that and just leave the data alone for a couple of days and see how it actually feels, and do a race with, not looking at that.
Yeah, I think there's so much there, and certainly previous featured expert editions around recovery have all pointed towards the importance of getting back to listening to your body. Cam, I want to just talk running for a moment. I've watched you race live a few times, most recently, which was a few years ago now, was 2015 at the Cannes Ironman Triathlon, and I was up there doing some work with the bar and endurance guys, and the word that I think of when I watch you run, Cam, is metronomic. Wind you up and let you go and spit out a 240 at the other end. And I know it's not that easy, but it's like, here's Cam, he's going to run that time. I'm just curious, what has been your best off the bike time in an Ironman triathlon for the marathon?
I think it was Melbourne, when I had that great battle with Craig Alexander, and I went 12 seconds from going under 8 hours, and he did 7 hours 57 minutes. I think he ran a 2:38 and high 2:38, and I ran a 2:41. So that's been my quickest 2:41 in Melbourne. Wow. And on my watch I got 42.5k, and I was 12 seconds short. So I hope it was long, because I've never been able to go under that magical 8 hour barrier. And
that's cruel.
That's one thing. But I was just been looking at some old VHS cassettes of back when I was racing as a junior, and my form and style was just shocking. It was I was never fast runner over 5k and 10k, and it was only until when I changed to Ironman that well, I did a lot of drill work when I was young, and it's slowly improved. And I think having a strong core and working on that and working on drill work, in the end, it may be a great endurance runner. And probably some of my times now, are so much quicker than what I ran as at my fastest when I was in the ITU days. So it's quite crazy that I'm running quicker now, but it shows you what form and a strong core can do for any runner.
You're listening to Cam Brown, 12 times New Zealand Ironman Triathlon champion, sharing on the highs, lows and learnings of his incredible career. Support for today's show comes from Kinesis Sunscreen. Kinesis is a range of sport performance sunscreens for your active lifestyle. Everything about the Kinesis sunscreen range, from the ergonomic bottle to the ingredients that they include and leave out of their formulas, have been developed specifically for athletes. Different to any sunscreen you've tried, and so light you won't feel like you're even wearing it. Kinesis sunscreen is super easy to apply, won't affect your grip or sting your eyes. You can find Kinesis sunscreens via your select retail partners in Canada, the US, Australia, or of course online through their regional websites. Simply search Kinesis Active, that's KINESYS Active online, and take up, listeners, the 20% offer. There's 20% off the full range of spray and natural zinc sunscreens by simply using the coupon code POGO on your regional website. So search for Kinesis Active and enjoy staying active while staying sun protected with Kinesis Sunscreen. And it is my athletic sunscreen of choice. Support for today's show also comes from Pogo Physio's online consultations. We exist to help you get back to your physical best, and this can be achieved efficiently and extremely well via online telehealth consultations. If you're an injured runner or triathlete looking to get back to your best, then jump over to pogophysio.com.au/telehealth to schedule your 45-minute online consultation with myself or any of the team at Pogo Physio. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured performer, none other than legendary and timeless Ironman triathlete Cam Brown. Cam, what would you say another game of top threes here are the top three requirements for good distance running? Top three requirements, technique-wise.
Yeah, looking back at the videos, definitely a strong core.
Strong core?
Yeah, if I didn't have that, then you just fall apart. And over an Ironman distance, it's so long that a strong core and strong and good form, then you will end up eventually breaking down. So having that, I think doing hill work over my time, there's so many hills in New Zealand, and that hill work that I continually do every week, it's just part and parcel of the work with my running weeks. It is amazing how much that makes you a stronger athlete as well, and just the consistency. I think with the training, it's not going out and trying to run 40k one week and then 80k the next week. It's I'd rather see athletes do 60k, 65k, 70k, and then as we say, drop it back down and then build again. And I think if you have more consistency in your training, then that'll pay off long term.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So strong core / good form, hill work, and there's that consistency word again. Cam, you mentioned core. As a 47, almost 48-year-old professional Ironman triathlete, what does a week of strength and conditioning look like for you?
Yeah, it's as when I was younger, I never visited the gym at all. I never did core work, so I think that's why my form was so poor back in the day. But nowadays, we can't go to the gym now. They're all closed. But I've just been doing a little bit of core work at the moment. Just in lockdown, I'm just pretty much having some time off, and just it's a long time before we next race. I've just gone on cruise mode for a couple of weeks, but normally 2 to 3 sessions in the gym, with strength and conditioning, but also just working with the Swiss ball, a lot of planks, a lot of side planks, and just stabilization as well, and being being very, very careful with that, and just choosing my shoes, I think, correctly now. I've seen a lot of injuries. I've had a lot of injuries, I think, now because of the carbon-soled shoes that we're seeing, and they're playing havoc on a lot of people, especially as we age. We go from a nice, flexible, soft shoe to something that's rigid and super stiff. So athletes have to be very, very cautious in that. It's all right when you're a 20-year-old and you've got a lot of mobility and strength, but as we age, we lose that. So it's maintaining that strength and conditioning over your whole entire body.
Did carbon-plated shoes play a factor in your onset of your calf injury, do you think, Cam? Or
yeah, definitely. I used them too much in my training, and my fast runs off the bike, my brickwork, and I probably had a slight injury. Not that I felt it going into Western Australia Ironman, and at 21 Ks it completely blew, or blew both calves actually, but it took me 7 weeks to come right. So nowadays, I pretty much stay clear of, it's only a race day shoe, and I've changed brands now as well because of that.
I mean, the big concern for masters athletes is plantar flexor strength loss, which is, the calves. They're the muscle group that take the biggest hit as we mature with loss of strength, and it can easily then be exacerbated with a change in stiffness of, for example, a shoe. So I think you're spot on, certainly from my professional side of things, with your assessment there, Cam. Cam, in the gym, you mentioned the gym when you're normally in there apart from lockdown, but are you pushing quite heavy into things there?
No, I've never really pushed max weights. I've I think I'm a little bit too scared to go to that maximum type where I'm pushing that red line too much. So it's more a little bit more lighter weights, but a lot more reps, and just that real strength conditioning. And I think if I did do too heavy, then I would probably blow myself again. So I'm probably a little bit more cautious in there. And it's probably more work on that core work.
Cam, highs, lows, learn-ins. How do you pick a highlight of your career? Is there such a thing? Yeah,
I think definitely winning. My first New Zealand Ironman in 2001. That was a dream come true. So that was a massive highlight to win that. That's for sure. And I'd been, as a 17-year-old, watching the race and following it for years and years and years, and then to finally win it, then that was a major. But I think podiuming 4 times in Hawaii and winning the European champs, they're right up there. But probably winning the 12th Ironman at New Zealand when I was 43 or 44. That was 43. So that was a real highlight as well. I never thought I'd be. I look back in the 80s and 90s, and you were pretty much in any sport. You were, once you hit your 30s, you were nearly retired, and if you were 35, then you were gone. And so I'm enjoying sort of trying to push those boundaries of what we can do as an older athlete, and you can do it. It's just keeping in the sport and doing it because you love it.
And I'm standing at my desk, and there's a poster of the current episode at the time of recording, episode 209. It's Jake Riley from America making the US Olympic marathon team. But just behind him, literally a metre is obscured in the photo, is Abdi from America, who qualified for that US Marathon Olympic team at 40, I think he was 45 on the day. Might have been 43 or 44. His 5th Olympic Games. So we're seeing this really, aren't we, Cam? We're seeing this recognition and appreciation and realising the possibilities of what's capable in these endurance sports well into the late 30s and early 40s, and even into the late 40s.
Yeah, it can be done. I think it's just sticking at it. I've seen a lot of people retire and then trying to come back, and I think it's just too hard. Your body, seizes up. It loses those little things that you've worked on for so many years, and I think that's the key, staying in the sport. And there's been so many developments in the sport as well with technology. It's I think as athletes, we're not getting any quicker, really. It's just the biking that has become so much faster with technology. Swimming and running, we're pretty much doing the same as what your Mark Allens did when he was winning, and so it hasn't really developed there. But the biking, it's the technology there with the carbon. Everything on my bike now is carbon, and it's so much lighter, it's so much quicker. The aerodynamics and the positions that we're seeing on the bike now are just pretty extreme. And I look back in the photos of the video coverage of what we used to look like, and it's we're just we've got total parachutes on the back of us, so it is quite incredible. So that's where the huge gains have come from in the sport, I think, over the last 10 years.
There was that beautiful photo you put up on the 17th of March of Time Trial Tuesday from 1988, and I love, you got the old triangle Scott bars, the time trial / one-piece handlebar. You've got the headway helmet by the looks on, and the steel frame and the gear levers down on the down tube. It's you have to take your hands off to get down there, and it's brilliant stuff. Cam, your Hawaii Ironman World title podiums: 2001 silver, 2005 silver, 2002 and 3 bronze. A question came through from a regular show listener, Joe Coombe, a recreationally competitive Ironman athlete herself. And Joe asked, how have you been able to be so successful in the heat, coming from New Zealand, particularly when anyone that knows you knows that you're a well-muscled frame. You're not an East African build. So, what's been the secret there of performing so well in the heat?
Yeah, well, I tried. I think the first year I ever went to Hawaii, I trained through a New Zealand winter, and that pretty much didn't work because I just totally blew up. And so every time I've been there, it's I've either gone to the Gold Coast or Noosa or Cairns to try and get in some heat acclimatization. And although it's not as hot as what Hawaii is, the conditions there are just too extreme, really. I think the times I have been to Hawaii beforehand and spent 6 weeks there, the performance I've had there has been no better because I've ended up toasting myself up there. So extreme heat can have an adverse effect on you day after day. I prefer being in the Gold Coast or Noosa, or where you'll still get 25, 26, 28 degree days, sometimes the 30 degree day, even September. And be able to have that consistency in training and not kill yourself day in, day out, rather than be in Hawaii where it's 35 degrees and just getting smashed day after day. So again, it's looking after the body and making sure it's recovering and doing all those little things. And but sometimes you can be in the best shape of your life and still get thrashed on that island. It's one of those places and races that doesn't matter how conditioned you are. Sometimes it'll throw you a curveball and things will go sideways.
Yeah, I mean, still an outstanding effort, 4 podiums across those years. Cam, before we throw into a performance round, the darkest day in your career, what's it been?
Plenty of Hawaii's. Yeah, there was sometimes, as I said, there was days I'd gone up there in the best shape of my life, and One time I got stung by a bee the night before, taking the kids down for a swim at 6 o'clock the night before the race, back blowing up, and then there was little getting sick a week before. Many times I had a great probably 4 or 5 great races there. And then the rest were, diabolical with just, as I said, just the little things can, put huge effects on your race. Having the kids there every year, I'd prepare as well as I could, but having a 5-year-old there and they pick up the odd thing, you'd get sick, and we all, just a little bee sting on the back, or flat tire halfway through the ride, and just little things like that. So plenty of dark days. In the sport, that's for sure. And
but there's that love of it, the perseverance, and on you went. And your children now, they're how old now, Cam? The 2 children? 16 and 18, yeah. So they've grown up with it, and I'm sure they've both said that they'd love to they've done their Weet-Bix Kiwi Kids triathlons and school triathlons, and
I think one day I'll be on the sidelines watching them do an Ironman. It's they've both said that they'd like to do it at one stage, but I don't push it. If they want to do it, they can. But it's been great having their support, and especially my wife. She's been absolutely fantastic, and the driving force behind me being able to do what I still love to do.
Yeah, and how old were you when you were on that first Ironman start list?
So 1997, I was 25.
Yeah, so I mean, you got into it at a reasonable age. You weren't 18 starting.
Yeah.
So
no, I think there's too many athletes that if you want to be competitive, I think it is a mature sport, and it's better to wait, develop your speed in the short course, move from Olympic to half Ironmans and then on to Ironmans.
Yeah, I imagine your two now grown children though, Cam, certainly had dad at school for a lot of show and tells over the years.
The odd one. Yeah, it's always a weird job, being a triathlete.
That's brilliant. We are thrilled here at the Physical Performance Show to be hosting via a live stream acclaimed sports scientist, episode 172, expert edition guest, Dr. Stephen Seiler, on a 2-hour live stream in July. During this live stream, Dr. Seiler will explore the theme Sustainable Training for Attainable Endurance Goals. The live stream will feature 4 sessions, including intensity distribution for long-term performance development, interval training, periodization and peaking, and training monitoring to support the process. This live stream is ideal for coaches, athletes, health professionals, fitness professionals, medical professionals, and students of the exercise sciences. To purchase your ticket to the live stream event for $49, jump over to pogophysio.com.au/Dr. Seiler live stream. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured performer, 12 times New Zealand Ironman Distance Triathlon champion, Cam Brown. Cam, let's throw into a performance round. Are you ready? Rapid fire questions. Training session most disliked?
Swim sessions. They're tough ones. Getting up at 5:30 every morning is not pleasant.
First in, last out. And just a curious question, Cam. I imagine you've probably done a lot of your work in the one pool over the years. How many pools have you trained at over the years, like home pools? Many pools. Probably I have to say my favourite would be the Noosa Aquatic Centre or Busy Park in the Gold Coast. Incredible pools. I mean, every time I train in Australia, there's a 50-metre pool every bloody 2 kilometres. So in New Zealand, they're a bit of a rarity, and we've probably got 4 50-metre pools in the entire Auckland. So it's very, very lucky every time we go to Australia how many pools there are, and great pools with great athletes. Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a cultural expectation. We'll do well in swimming. Training session most loved?
Definitely my trail running. Yeah, I love to run trails and get up to the top of the mountain and see a great view. That's probably my most favourite sessions.
Have you done much trail running, like racing though, or you've stayed away from it?
No. I've sort of stayed away from it, but I think we're going to be locked down for our borders. Could be shut for, they're saying, maybe up to a year, 2 years. But if that's the case, I'm going to be heading down to the South Island of New Zealand and trying to get in some great peaks and run some fantastic trails around there.
Yeah, we're not, you're spoiled, I should say, for choice in New Zealand. Favourite pre-race meal, Cam? What fuels these 12 Ironman New Zealand victories?
Oh, I'd have to say, definitely Mum's salmon pasta. She cooks up a salmon pasta every time, and it works wonders. So, can't go without that.
That's the night before, the salmon pasta?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, wow. Fresh New Zealand salmon?
Sometimes the tin, but if you can get some nice fresh stuff, yep.
I don't even know if salmon. I don't even know where they come from, so excuse my ignorance. Bedtime, morning time, Cam. What's that typically look like in a training block for you?
What time I get up? Or?
Bedtime. Time you go to bed. Time you getting up.
Normally, bedtime would be around sort of 9:30, and getting up is. Normally 5:23 if I get the old clock going, 5:23, so I can get to the pool on time.
How often do you need your clock versus you waking up? You're in such a groove.
Pretty much, always the clock. Okay. There'd be plenty of times if I didn't have the alarm going on, I'd be missing plenty of sessions, so I've got to have that going.
You wouldn't be the first in. Who's the athlete you most admire, Cam, and why?
Oh, I think he's always been, my hero, and that's, Rick Wells from New Zealand. The first official, 1987 world champion in Perth, and he had that incredible sprint finish on the at the 1991 World Championships on the Gold Coast with Miles Stewart and Mike Pigg. They were sprinting down the line, and Miles ended up winning it, but Rick was second in a tie with Mike Pigg. If you can watch it, the 1991 World Championships, I think the sprint goes for about 400 metres. And he was the 1990 Commonwealth Games champion, but just a great hero and a great man.
Toughest competitor you've ever raced, Cam, and why? Who and why?
Oh, I think definitely Craig Alexander. I think he comes on. I sort of class myself off him, really. He's a fantastic guy. He's a hard workhorse, and he'll get out there and just give it everything. And he's just a great athlete, great man, and just a guy that I have a lot of time for.
Is there a mantra? And here, absolutely. Is there a mantra that you use or have regularly used when you're racing, Cam? Some regular self-talk?
Just one of Steve Prefontaine's classic lines, and to give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift.
Yeah, beautiful. Best recovery tip, Cam?
Don't know, probably getting in the Normatec boots afterwards. I'd love a massage, but I can't walk downstairs for about 3 or 4 days, so it takes me about 3 days to get a massage. But straight into the Normatec boots.
Brilliant. Worst injury, Cam?
Oh, probably plantar fascia. I think after the 2012 Melbourne Ironman, I think I had plantar fascia running on that camber for 42 k's. I think for 18 months I had a plantar fascia. I could train, but just that bloody thing doesn't go away for a long, long time, does it?
It can be persistent, that's for sure. One word to describe your racing style?
Probably, I don't know, poker face. I don't show much out there, and I leave it all inside. And that'd be my mate always used to call me the poker faced assassin.
Where did the nickname Chucky come from? Quick side note.
Oh, just Charlie Brown. Definitely. So from that, and probably chucked up a few times as a junior, getting a little bit drunk on the beers.
Those days have passed, though, right?
Yeah, no, I don't touch it. I much prefer a can of Coke than a can of beer.
Older and wiser. How would you describe being in the zone?
Painful.
When was the last time you were in the zone?
I'd say New Zealand Ironman, but that was I was only in zone for a little bit. There was too much pain going on, and I think the best zone I've had would be 2012, running for 38 k's with Craig Alexander.
Yeah, wow. And finally, Cam, last question in the performance round. What's the hardest, and this will be the stuff legends are made of, I think, even though hard sessions don't make champion athletes, the C word does, like you've already outlined, the consistency. But what's the hardest session you can ever recall doing, Cam?
I think probably the one that most hurt me was I think I did a 200k ride, and I ran off the bike. I was doing a brick session, steady state session, and I actually had to stop, and I could, because I didn't know where I was. I was in La La Land. I hadn't eaten enough, and I'd gotten in such a state that it took me about 5 minutes to actually know where the hell I was in my neighbourhood. That was a bad day. But it was one of those days I always remember, because it was like, man,
wow.
I just don't know where I am and what I'm doing. So I put myself in the box that day. That's for sure.
You just were underfueled.
I had done a 200k ride and hard brick off the bike, and I was probably got, I think I remember it was probably about 45 minutes in, and then I just hit the wall and just was in a state where didn't know where the hell I was. Wow.
Cam, on the fueling side of things, I think it would be remiss not to ask you this, with the years of experience you've got. What would be your top 3 nutrition tips for Ironman athletes? Top 3 nutrition tips.
Yeah, it's a hard one because I think every athlete is, an individual, and I can have 12 gels on the bike and that, I've got an iron stomach for that. But if someone else did that, then that probably it wouldn't work. So, but I think knowing what your body can handle, don't listen to too much advice. You've got to do it in training, try it in training, and see what works. That's the key thing. Every athlete is an individual, and we're not all built the same. Two is, I think, having a well-balanced diet, but just enjoying yourself as well. It's okay to, have some chocolate, have some banana cake, have a meat pie, and that's what I do. And I'm still doing it after 33 years. So I think I've never had a fad diet. I just don't get into that. I just eat a balanced diet. Your proteins, your carbs. Keeping hydrated. And eating well, and just enjoying your food. I think that's why I do it. To have the odd treat is great. And third is, I think having a bottle every time you train. Having a meaning. Every time I'm at the pool, I've got a bottle of either water or electrolyte drink. I've got something afterwards to have. It's always just keeping the body hydrated, and I think if you do that, then the recovery, you'll see the recovery be so much better. And that's one key thing that I think athletes probably don't do enough of, is just hydrating throughout the 24 hours of the day.
Top 3 nutrition tips. Well done. And I'm glad you clarified the bottle, Cam, because you did say you've given the beers away for the Cokes. So Coca-Colas. You're listening to Cam Brown on this, a featured performer episode, sharing on his career highs, lows, and learnings. If you missed last week's episode, it was an expert edition featuring New Zealand compatriot of Cam's, Dan Plews, PhD. Now, Dan shared around all things heat training and acclimation for the endurance athlete. It's a deep dive into the topic you are not going to want to miss. Find out how you can use heat training to prepare your body for your next upcoming event, or to get ready for that race that will be either hot and dry or hot and humid. Here's a little snippet of last week's episode.
Long course triathlons, it's an interesting, I talk to a lot of age groupers and they're like, what do you want to achieve? You go, I want to get faster. And I'm like, you don't need to get faster. You can run the speed required to run a 3-hour marathon today if you need to. But the problem is you can't do it easy enough. And that's a real important thing to remember.
To tune into the full episode and explore the archives of the show, be sure to jump over to wherever it is that you enjoy your podcasts from and peruse away. For now, let's jump back with this week's featured performer, none other than Cam Brown. Cam, before we throw into the physical challenge for the week, how do you as a Masters athlete deal with the fact that physiologically there does come that point where it is, a matter of slowing down and physiological changes? It's, from recollection, about 7%, from science, of VO2 max every decade that, we can lose from the age of, I think, 30 years. How do you psychologically deal with the fact that, as we all age, we'll be getting slower? I remember asking Steve Monaghetti, and he said he started to have a bit of fun with it and see how many personal worsts he could set as a runner. Australian distance, great. What advice would you give to Masters athletes that, on how to psychologically accept the changing of, race performance times?
Yeah, it's not easy, but I think you have to just go with the flow and let it be. I mean, I still love, trying to kick the young guys' asses, and it's actually sort of it's a pleasure to try and do it. I think it's motivates me to try and keep going, keep pushing, and keep beating the younger guys. But I know. Hey, I'm still at the moment at 47 years of age. I'm still producing an 8:14 on an average build-up. So. That percentage is it's slowly going to come down, and but again, I think you can push the boundaries, and you can people are doing phenomenal things, and so I think again it just comes down to consistency in your training and knowing how hard to push, knowing your body, not saying it's, your Garmin tells you to have 72 hours of recovery after some session, which it tells me to do sometimes. It's like, no, I'm not going to. It's like, listen to your body, know what know what your body can handle, not what some bloody piece of data is going to tell you. So you've got it, yeah.
Cam, look, it's absolutely brilliant. In terms of, this is a tricky question, but if you had to boil everything you've learnt across your 33 years of professional career, still going, there's still a couple of chapters left for Cam Brown, into one piece of advice to help the listeners of this show perform at their best, what would that one piece of advice be?
Jeepers, one piece. I've just said it repeatedly throughout this whole, session, is just consistency in your training.
Consistency in your training.
Yeah.
Well, Cam, have you ever considered how many miles you would have clocked up across the disciplines over the years? Have you ever done that little rough calculation?
I think someone did a few years ago, and that was probably 10 years ago, so I've probably doubled that again. So it'd be quite crazy if you added it up, because I have been a bit of a mileage freak over the years. It's something that gets me very, very fit. Some athletes can do the bare minimum, but I'm sort of one of those athletes that has to do quite a lot to get to my peak, and it would be quite mind-boggling to know how many times you've probably gone around around Earth. Yep.
It'll be great to get those stats somehow at the end of your career, whenever that may be. I mean, your mileage. I read preparing for today that on average you might be 20 to 25 k's in the water, swimming 550 to 700 on the bike. Kilometres, that is, and as you've already mentioned, 100 to say 120 on the run. So that's sort of been a diet right through your career. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, again, those are peak weeks, and you'll have your weeks where those are probably 40-hour weeks. Nowadays, I probably hit sort of 33 to 34-hour weeks. And again, when I was a junior, you weren't doing that sort of mileage. It was, more 20 hours a week. I think I've just built it year after year after year until your 30s, and it's probably coming down slightly every year as I age.
By a percentage, or just an hour a week, or?
I think I've definitely seen those peak weeks when I was in those Hawaii years it would definitely be 40 hours plus a week, and nowadays I think this sort of the last couple of seasons it's probably been really around 34, 35 hours a week, and but I'm lucky I get to do this full time, and it's been my only ever job. So you have that luxury of being able to train hard, recover, and put your feet up at the end of the day. Where the average Joe Blogs is they've got their work commitments, they've got their family commitments. So I take my hat off to every age group athlete out there that they're working 40, 50 hours a week, and then trying to train sort of 10, 15, 20 hours a week as well. So it's quite incredible.
Yeah, for sure. Cam, finally, every guest of the show issues listeners with a physical challenge for the week. So what is Cam Brown's physical challenge going to be?
My physical challenge? I think it's a great set to do, and I've done many of these sessions over the years, and it's 8 by 1K on the track, 200 recovery in between, and if you can do that, it's a consistent pace at every one. You don't try and smash every one that you blow up at after 4. So it's trying to keep those K pace consistency, and if you're in good shape when you can complete that session well, and as we said, coming away from the track thinking, hey, I could have done one or two more, but I'm going to leave it at that. It's a great session, and after a 30-minute warm up and a 10-15-minute warm down, you've done a good solid session.
Yeah, and is that, just to clarify, that's a float recovery, a jog recovery, or a walk recovery?
Yeah. I've always done a jog recovery, and I think as a endurance athlete, I think it's better to jog it. If you were doing really fast repetitions as a short course athlete, then having max rest, then it's probably better. But for me, it's those sessions are normally jog between.
Absolutely. Cam Brown, thank you for sharing. I know we've just touched on a few of the many highlights and different learnings you've taken from your career, but thank you for your contribution, and may you keep enduring, and as an article quoted, being immune to the effects of time.
Yeah. Cheers. I hope I can talk to you in another 10 years and we're still in the sport and still racing.
Well, that would be something. So let's aim for that. Cam Brown, thank you.
Thanks very much, Brad.
So there you have it. Another episode of the Physical Performance Show. And I trust and I know you were both inspired and informed from Cam's sharings. Now, if you were, please jump over and let Cam know what it was that you enjoyed from his sharings. You'll find Cam easily over on Instagram at CamBrown72. Don't forget to keep the podsies coming. That's simply a screenshot of the episode that you're enjoying at any given point in time, and tagging in the Physical Performance Show on Instagram at Physical Performance Show. My handle at Brad_beer. The podsies are a whole lot of fun. We'll reshare them as they come through. A massive thanks to those leaving ratings and reviews over on iTunes. That really is rocket fuel for the show. Also for those hitting subscribe. If you've enjoyed more than 4 episodes of the show, then please consider hitting subscribe, and that'll ensure these episodes come to you each and every week on a Thursday evening as they go live. The show's really been gaining momentum. We had a record month of downloads in the month of April. So massive thanks also to those who have been sharing the episodes with your training buddies and people you know who, just like you, are looking to perform at their own physical best. And if you know someone in your world that would enjoy or benefit from Cam's sharings, today's featured guest, then please share the episode with them. That would mean a lot. Now, massive thanks to today's show sponsor, Kinesis Sunscreen. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Kinesis are offering all listeners of the Physical Performance Show 20% off the entire Kinesis Sunscreen range. Jump over and search for Kinesis, Kinesis, active on Google, and be sure to enter the code POGO, P-O-G-O, for 20% off these fantastic sunscreen products. Kinesis is the sunscreen that I personally athletically use, and I'm yet to experience such a great sunscreen. A big thanks, as always, to the 3 great folk who make this show possible each and every week. Daryl Misson, our audio engineer, Susan Wilkin on all things show administration, and Matthew Walding on all things show graphic design. Don't forget, tickets are open for the Dr. Seiler live stream event happening on July the 18th, and you'll find tickets available over at pogophysio.com.au/Dr. Seiler live stream. Now, coming up on next week's episode of the Physical Performance Show, I'll share with you a conversation that I recently had around all things maximising health and performance for the Masters athlete. Now, if you are sub 35 years, don't tune out. If you are 35 years plus, you are deemed a Masters athlete. It's not just 40 plus. And Professor Rayburn will share around all things how to optimize the performance of a Masters athlete. And this fits so beautifully with Cam Brown's sharings on today's episode. Dr. Rayburn has been a career-long academic looking at the performance of Masters athletes and is currently the head of program at Bond University's Institute of Health and Sport, and himself has been a record-breaking athlete across his years. Following Professor Rayburn, I'm super excited to bring you a conversation that I recently had with none other than triathlon superstar Johnny Brownlee. That's right, Johnny Brownlee, silver medalist from the 2016 Rio Olympic Games and bronze medalist from the 2012 London Olympic Games, on a featured performer episode. So until next week, keep pursuing your physical best performance. I'm Brad Beer, and this has been the Physical Performance Show.